Hello, my name's Robert Beck. I'm white South African. Sawubona wonke. Kanjani? I'm Gamina Robert Beck. I'm speaking Zulu to African people who might be watching. Um, yeah, South Africa's in a terrible state at the moment. A lot of blacks are being murdered. That is very true. The thing is, the country now is not governed by the whites, by the whites anymore. The government of the country is black, and the power to elect the government is black. So there's nothing the whites can do about what's happening in South Africa. We rely on the black government to look after us. What the world, the world condemns South Africa for its past. What the world doesn't seem to highlight is that South Africa has only got a black government because the white people in South Africa, in the apartheid South Africa, voted to give a black government the power. Now we had such negative, negative exposure in the world. CNN, BBC, all the big broadcasting companies broadcast the white South Africans as being horrific monsters. Now, that's very interesting. I served in the military. I was in Angola for quite a long time. And I was in the black townships in South Africa. And as a white South African, we never had a threat from within the townships at the time. What happened inside the townships? You had Zulus, you had Xhosas, you had Pondus, all different African tribes. The Africans go back hundreds of years where there's tribal wars going on amongst them. So anyway, in the military, we were called in and we maintained peace and law and order in a very volatile environment. I mean, the whole of Africa is a volatile environment. And the townships with Africans was no exception. So we maintained law and order. We protected the schools. The ANC the ANC Youth League had burnt down the black schools, a couple of black schools. So we were sent in. We protected the black schools. We protected the black hospitals. I mean, one time they had a strike. There were a whole lot of white South Africans that volunteered to go and help in the black hospitals because the black staff had all gone on strike. There was no one to care for the sick people, and the Africans said if the whites come in to work in the hospitals, they were going to murder them. So we had to transport the black people into work every day. The white people into work every day, and they weren't paid. They were free volunteers. No blacks, surprisingly enough, volunteered to come and help in the hospitals unless they were paid. The whites went in and they nursed the black people for nothing. They never asked for any compensation for doing that. They did it out of the goodness of their hearts. But the African people outside that were striking were threatening to murder them. So we had to try take them in, and afterwards we had to take them out of the townships again. We were called on often. The one night we were called, for example, where these Africans had thrown tires on an old African man. They set him alight, and he was burning to death. We came and we dispersed the volatile situation. But anyway, that's what South Africa was like. We weren't monsters. I mean, my ancestors are from the UK. Just the same as the most ancestors of the American settlers, and just like the Australian settlers. So my roots are exactly the same. My principles are the same as what the Western world is like. So I'm not a monster. My father was a policeman in South Africa. My mom ran an African clinic for African people in Zululand. So you can say my dad was a monster, my mom was a saint, whatever you want. But it's crazy. We weren't monsters. We knew as African as white Africans, we knew how to survive in Africa. We knew what it would take to survive in Africa, and we knew what we had to do to survive in Africa. Now it's easy for you to sit in America, in Australia, in England, or wherever else in the world, where you've got a small minority black population, And you think, and if, I mean, you avoid those areas because they're unsafe. But in South Africa, we can't. We make up, hell, with all the illegal immigrants in South Africa, we must probably make up 4 or 5% of the population now. We have nowhere to run. South Africa is our home. We have got no right to go live in other countries unless we can get citizenship for those countries, which currently a lot of white South Africans that are left there, we have got nowhere to go. You know, getting back to, I mean, here's a local South African newspaper, Pretoria News. Now the Pretoria News, I don't know if Pretoria is a small city in South Africa. Pretoria News, okay? That's our Minister of Law and Order, and this guy here is Chief of Police in South Africa, okay? This guy currently said, if you don't like the statistics in South Africa, leave. Well, you know what? We've got nowhere to leave to, because South Africa is our country, and we don't have right to go to another country unless the world is willing to open up and allow the white South Africans to get out. Violent crime rises in city. Now, this is in one city. This is where my brother and wife and a lot of my friends live. The past year brought nearly 40,000 cases of murder, rape, and robbery. Now, that's in one city. Now, where in the world do you see that kind of horrific statistics? I mean, it's, you know, a South African has got more chance of being murdered than what an average Iraqi citizen has. We've got more chance of being murdered. Well, currently it's 4 times more chance of being murdered than what the American troops had in Vietnam. Now, I mean, that is if that's not genocide, then hell, I don't know what. And people can say, yeah, well, the blacks are also being murdered. I agree the blacks are being murdered as well. But the blacks are the ones that voted the ANC. I mean, we're such a small minority white that our vote means nothing. So we didn't put... it's African people that have put the ANC in power, and they keep voting them into power, and they keep putting a useless government in power. But I mean, every African country's black government is useless. And the thing is, as white South Africans, when we handed power over to the blacks, we voted. Our government came to us, the white government said, okay, the world says we're evil, the world says we're wrong, we've got sanctions against us, although with sanctions we were doing very well. There was no problem. But you know, because I mean, we Western, you know, we think like Westerners. Our roots are from where the West's roots are. So we had a conscience, and we thought, well, hell, if the whole world thinks we're so evil, and you guys all believe, oh, it can work. Well, let's hand over power and just really pray to God that it's going to work. Well, it hasn't. It's an absolute nightmare, and it's not just the farmers. It's moving so much more into the white areas now. I visited South Africa because I'm in the UK for a while. I was there I was there about a month and a half ago. Anyway, they murdered an old man up the road from where I was staying, about 5 or 6 houses up. You know, they burnt him to death with an iron. It was Zimbabweans that murdered him. And then, you know, if there isn't not a genocide against the whites, then why would our minister say, well, if you don't like the statistics, then leave? Who is he talking to? Who must leave? Who doesn't like the statistics? You know, it's the whites. The whites, of course, we're not happy with what's happening. But where do we go to? But I mean, if we don't leave, what's going to happen? We're going to be murdered. And we can't leave because where do we go to? But anyway, the world doesn't care. The world forced South Africa to change, and now it's failing. Now because it's blacks murdering whites, it's no problem. You know, if it's the other way around, oh no, that's racism. But if the white small minority is being slaughtered, it's no problem. You know, because it's not racist. The world must wake up. Really, the world is absolutely stupid. You know, we can't even look after our own race anymore. Anyway, nice chatting. Cheers.